Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cam, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios here in Morristown, New Jersey. My guest today is the owner of Shine Insurance Agency along with his wife, McKenzie. He's an educator at heart and spent 13 years helping countless kids fall in love with art, math, science, and writing. Eventually, he decided to change the way people feel about insurance and carry the heart of an educator over to a new industry, making insurance simple for first-time home buyers and real estate investors ever since. He is Jeremy Goodrich. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Michael, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you, another insurance nerd, and just kind of dig in on all the things that we do, why we do them, and how they affect real estate in general.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited. I always like having other insurance people on. So I've had insurance people on in the past. Obviously, I'm a title insurance guy myself. So I know the stigma. Anybody that's listening might have shut us off already, but if you've made it this far,
right, your title is going to be the biggest thing. It's like,
yeah.
how do you get a title that makes someone show up? But I think it is going to be a great conversation, and I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So tell me, I'm just going to jump right into a question that I had when I started reading about you and doing my research and all that kind of stuff. Why make the jump from teacher to insurance agent? How do you make that jump?
It's a terrible jump. Like, who makes that jump?
Yeah, like you might be the only person ever to make that jump, which makes you unique. Yeah. So let's hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I grew up a pastor's kid. So servants, being a servant, serving other people, teaching, experiencing that is just sort of like what I saw as a kid growing up. And I loved it. I mean, I was an athlete playing baseball and soccer. I always liked kind of the coaching side, team leadership side. I just got into that stuff. I really enjoyed not only being a servant, but for sort of taking people somewhere. And so when I went to college, I actually I dropped out of all of it. I kind of like started wearing the big overalls and was kind of a deep Grateful Dead hippie and kind of into this whole world and wanted to be like an artist was my true goal, to weave on barn looms, huge frame looms, and weave like fabrics and things of that nature. I was super into it. My dad was like, man, you've got to get a degree that's going to provide you some value. Right.
Yeah.
And, so he was always a good advisor to me. And he kind of said, you got to do something has a little more potential. And for all those artists out there that are saying, hey, being an artist has tons of potential. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that isn't there. My dad was saying that. But so I listened to him and I said, all right, what do I love? And I was like, I love hanging out with kids, and I feel like that really aligns. And so I got a degree in art education. So I became an art teacher. And I loved being a teacher. I was an art teacher for 5 years. And then I became a 3rd and 4th grade classroom teacher for 8 years after that. And I just loved it. I've always said to teachers of younger kids, like kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, I'm like, I couldn't do that. I don't want to teach kids how to read. I want to teach them how to love reading. I don't want to teach them how to write. I want to teach them how to be an author, And so I just really loved that, a 3rd to 5th grade age where you're just teaching kids how to love stuff. And I mean, at the school I taught at, I was we kind of did everything. So I taught reading, I taught math, I taught authoring or writing. I taught gym. I taught kids how to play hockey, and all, that was fun. Hockey was my favorite.
Yeah.
But I loved it. The problem was the same problem that so many people have that are teachers. And that was, I was running up credit card debt. I was not able to live within the $27,000 a year I was making. And at some point in the sort of final years as a teacher, it wasn't working, and I was realizing that the service I was providing and I loved was taking away a lot of future capacities for me. And at the same time, I had met my now wife and business partner, who was an insurance agent at her dad's insurance agency. So that's where the two come together.
Gotcha.
And so, we got married, and a few years after we got married, we both decided, what, it's time to take the leap. And our goal was to try and change the way people feel about insurance. Like, we saw this industry. She had been in the industry for, 10, 15 years, and she was often the only woman in the room. She had experienced, a whole lot of misogyny and a lot of, just crappy stuff in this industry. And it still exists, obviously, in this industry today.
Right.
And she wanted to do something about it, and she knew she couldn't do it there. And, when we were talking together, it was like, well, why don't I take my love for teaching and try and bring it to insurance? And we can put those two things together and as best we can, the small part of the industry that we are, do a little something to change the way people feel about insurance. And so that's what we've been doing for the last 8 years.
Yeah, I love that. And we have similar parallels, you and I, because before I started selling title insurance, was a college baseball coach. So I
Cool.
did that for about 4 or 5 years. Was making anywhere from zero to $10,000 a year in that
So,
stretch.
sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, I was like, big fancy car, diamond
Right.
rings, jet flying, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But
Like all college coaches.
yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
Well,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
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 But yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, I kind of fell more ass backwards into title insurance and then had to learn how to love it as opposed to you, which I think that you kind of approached it in a different way, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
So talk to me about maybe was it the initial getting into insurance? Was it difficult to try to educate people to maybe not educate? Let's not touch that yet because I do have
Yeah.
more questions that I want to do on that. But
Yeah.
like when you make this jump from teacher to insurance agent, are people like, man, he really took a turn? I mean, maybe he like hates kids
Yeah.
now or whatever. I mean, obviously you
Right.
don't, but like, I mean, does that change people's perception of you, or was that just something that they like knew you were a good guy, so they just kind of rolled with it?
I think it changed my own like I struggled with it a little bit. I didn't really realize the perception, right? I was just sort of like, okay, yeah, this sounds good. This sounds like a good idea. This sounds like a much better way to build financial freedom and start to, go that direction with finances and stuff like that. Um, I know that we've got good connections in the industry. It's going to be great. And then I started and I did my last day of school teaching. I did a week of education and licensing around insurance. And then the next Monday, I was selling insurance, home and auto insurance to people, right? And I immediately realized this complete shift in a trust experience, right? Like with teachers, you drop your kids off at school, and oftentimes they spend more time with your kids than you do,
Yeah.
you know? And there's just this real trust there. And I always appreciated that and respected that. And when you are an insurance salesperson, there's zero trust there. There's absolutely none. It's the opposite of trust.
Right.
And I think it took me a little bit to really get used to that. At the same time, I've been fortunate enough to just be me, and that has worked okay. So it's just like, I'm not selling you anything. You know what I mean? Like, I'll tell you what I've got. I know it's the best thing for you. I know I can help you. Here's how I can help you. Let me teach you about how this works as much as you want to learn and as little as you want to learn. Like, where are you at on this? I've spent 3 or 4 hours with someone who wanted to understand every single detail of their home and auto insurance policy. I've spent obviously much less time with that than that with most people.
Yeah.
So I just approached it that way, and it's worked out fine. As far as how people perceive me, I kind of have no idea. I mean, I would imagine your perception changes of someone when they go from teacher to insurance advisor, but I haven't thought a ton about it really.
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. And I think also the patience factor, especially coming from a coaching background, a teaching background, you got to have a lot of patience. And especially in
Yeah.
this type of world where you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with different people in different areas of life and, doing different things. You mentioned home and auto insurance. I know we're going to talk about real estate stuff here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you need to have some patience with these types with people that you work with just because
Yeah.
it's the education side of it.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean that, and maybe we're going to go into that, but the ability to explain things. I mean, when you're teaching division to a 10-year-old, like it's very similar to the insurance conversation. Like you're trying to teach someone something that is good for them. You really know it's good for them to understand it. Like long division may not be the most valuable skill, but math in general certainly is, and the ability to manipulate numbers. But tons of kids don't want to learn it. Tons of kids don't really get it. Different kids learn it different ways. But ultimately, the outcome is a place where we want them to say, okay, I may not love this thing. I may not care if I use it in my life all that much, but ultimately, I at least understand it enough to move forward in my life without it impeding my ability to do so.
Right, exactly. So before we start talking about the education side of it and the education piece, let's just define the types of people that you are working with. That way, the people that are listening know that you're probably talking to them. So who do you work with generally?
Yeah, so pretty much who I work with right now is commercial real estate investors. So that is specifically, we have a home and auto division that is very local to our local area in Indiana. So if you're in Indiana, we can do home and auto insurance. But I personally run the division of Shine Insurance that is commercial real estate investors. We take a limited number of new clients. We're fairly controlled in how we grow. And our three criterion are basically, do we like you? Can we help you? And do we like you? Can we help you? Would we invest in your deals? That's basically our triangle is, if our relationship would be cool and we know we can help, and would we invest in your deals? If we wouldn't invest in your deals, it's probably not good for us to be in the mix as a part of your team.
Right. Talk to me about, because I think that's very interesting. Talk to me about how you discover that. Is it a lot of like early conversations with these people to make sure that they feel comfortable and you feel comfortable, vice versa?
Yeah, so there's a balance here, right? Because a good commercial real estate investor also doesn't want to spend a ton of time talking about insurance.
Right.
And I don't want to make them spend a ton of time talking about insurance. And so there's this balance between making sure that we're the right fit for each other and not wasting anybody's time. I'm very good at quick responses. My clients, before we got on this call, someone sent me 100-unit complex and said, give me a ballpark number. I'm making an offer right now. As an existing client, so I'm willing to do that. I did that in the 4 minutes before we got on this call.
Right.
I'm quick to respond to people. I understand. So we do a fit call basically. And what I say is, before I start a relationship with you, I want to spend 20 minutes with you and hear your story, hear your journey, hear your experience you've had with insurance advisors before, share a couple of war stories, and then take it from there.
Right. Yeah. I think that, you said that people don't want to spend a lot of time talking about insurance, and they don't. Let's be real. I mean, insurance is not, I don't care what kind of insurance it is. It's not sexy. It doesn't, put asses in the seats. But I do think that there's something to be said for like developing that rapport and that trust early on. And I mean, I don't know how many insurance agents actually do something like that. You know what I mean? Like take the time to actually make sure that it's a good fit both ways, rather than just being like, hey, you're a client, you're a client, you're a client, you're a client. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll sell you whatever policy. I may not even know exactly what's in it, but I know how much money I can make off of it.
Right.
And so I'm going to go after it. Yeah. The other thing that I think a lot of investors don't realize, and folks in general, is that we have a ton of connections. Like as the person who does title insurance, you see investors all week, all day long. A lot of people around the industry, and I'm in the same position. I know when someone's selling their property. I know who needs to buy properties. And so I don't necessarily pitch this all the time as a part of the value that comes with being a client of ours, but I connect a lot of people with a lot of deals and do a lot of other things around real estate investing besides just the insurance piece.
Well, yeah, because you have to bring some type of value, right, to the table. Because I mean, for at least here in New Jersey, as far as title insurance sales reps go, whether you're a large underwriter like us or a small mom and pop agency, there's a lot of title sales reps that exist in the world. You know what I mean? And I think that, the ways that you're able to bring value, like you were just saying, with connecting and networking and doing those different things and making sure that maybe you're even able to create some deals helps everybody, and I think that that's imperative and something that you just need to do. You can't just be like an order taker. That's literally what some people do, and that's fine. And if that's the extent that you want to exist in that world, but if you want to take it to a next level, you need to be able to understand a lot of different things about this particular industry.
Oh, 100%. And I think for your listeners, a couple of things. One is if you're talking with any service provider, whether that's lawyer, attorney, title insurance, P&C insurance, property manager, or whoever, if they can't talk the talk, that's like the bottom level, right? You've got to, be able to be a part of this industry and know this industry. But the other is, see all these service providers as potential connectors for you to deals, because they are. And if you don't ask, or if you don't put yourself in the position to be known as someone who wants those deals, then those service providers may not know. But anybody who's a specialist in this industry has a whole bunch of knowledge about different pieces, like you just said, Mike.
Right, of course. Yeah. So let's finally get to the education piece of it. Talk to me about ways that you go about educating these clients on what you're able to provide for them. So I think that that's really important, because like we mentioned, I think we were even talking about it before we even got on start of the episode, about people that don't necessarily understand it, So they're just like, it's insurance, just like figure it out for me. But they need to know like what it is that they're getting and how it can help them. Like that's the most important part. That's what it's there for, is to help you. So talk to me about how you go about educating your people on those types of things.
Yeah, there's so many layers to that. I'll just hit on a couple. So, not only do I want to educate my clients or my potential clients, but I also want to educate people who maybe never do business with me. And so I started a YouTube channel 5-6 years ago. And it started when I was doing home and auto insurance, and I was working with first-time home buyers. And they were asking me questions not only about insurance, but they were asking me about, what does an escrow period mean? What's an appraisal? Like, how's an inspection work? Like, what's a title company? How do I find the best realtor? Or how do I find the best lender? And I was just getting all these questions in our conversations. And so I decided to start recording videos with specialists that answered all those questions. So I would record a conversation with a lender or a title company owner or, a realtor or an inspector or whatever, and just put them out on YouTube. And now we have 14,000 subscribers. It's not a huge channel, but it's certainly a solid channel where folks are just getting answers to those questions. So the first layer of helping and explaining started with just recording videos. That those videos are about real estate, but they're also about home and auto insurance and commercial real estate insurance. So I have a course it's free. It's just on YouTube, on home and auto insurance, and a course on, commercial real estate insurance. So that's the first layer, is just creating recorded spaces where folks can go at their own pace and learn things. So one of our bigger videos is, how does a workers' compensation audit work? And most of your listeners might be like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
But those listeners that were like, oh my God, I hate work comp audits and I don't understand them, they can go spend 10 minutes, watch that video. And now it's like, okay, I might still hate work comp audits, but at least I understand it.
Right.
So I think that's the first education piece. And then as you get closer to, more like with clients, we have something called a portfolio overview, which I use with all of my clients, whether they have 20 doors or 2,000 keys or whatever. And it overviews the scenario in as simple a way as we possibly can on the insurance side. And then when I offer a proposal, or when we add a new complex, or when we have an annual renewal, whatever those key times are that we're addressing things, I'll record a 10-minute video. And it's just like, here's what I'm seeing. Here's where we're at. Here's the basic overview. Here's some things you might want to consider. Let me know what your questions are.
Right.
And then people can take it from there. So again, I have some folks who are like, hey, I want to get on a call. We better put an hour in here because I've got a lot of questions. Great. No problem. Excited to talk with you about it. Or people that say, thanks, appreciate it. Another great year. Thanks for having us. So I think did that answer your question as far as kind of where the education comes from?
Yeah, definitely. Cause I think that that's a really important thing. And it was interesting because I was, had made a couple notes on some things that I did want to touch on. It was funny that we were talking about being an art teacher. So I'm going to start tying some stories here together. Being an art teacher, having this YouTube channel, and over 14,000 subscribers on a YouTube channel is nothing to sneeze at. So that's a tremendous accomplishment. I'm pretty sure the Morning Spotlight's YouTube channel, granted, we don't do a ton of marketing for that channel, I think it has 41. So,
you're getting there.
There.
You can monetize, you keep working, you can monetize pretty soon, I think.
Yeah. So it's going to take us a little bit, but I do think that there's something to be said also, because you also have at least one podcast. You have two podcasts, right?
Scratch one podcast right now. I've had 3 altogether. Okay. Scratch Entrepreneur was my first podcast. It doesn't happen anymore. Then I had the New Home Buyer's Guide, which was about purchasing first homes. And now it's REI Clarity, which is a podcast all about commercial real estate.
Okay, I'm going to close this Scratch Entrepreneur tab because I don't need it anymore. But
that was a great show. It was my first show,
well, I'll definitely check it out. But that's something that I was interested to hear about, because I'm also an insurance guy. I have a podcast. Granted, it's a little bit broader and we do some different things on this show, more so than just real estate, but 50% of it is still based in real estate. We talk about real estate topics with real estate guests and all that kind of stuff. Do you think that maybe doing this YouTube channel and the podcast and different things like that is maybe tying the art life with this I almost said boring. It's not
Yeah,
boring
yeah,
with the
right.
insurance life. Do you think that it's like tying those two things together and it gives you a chance to kind of spread your wings a little bit?
100%. I mean, as I was, I continued to be something kind of an artist during the time that I was a teacher. And when we started this, I was sort of fading out in the work I was doing there and just not inspired anymore by it. It just wasn't happening. And the YouTube channel in particular and the podcast both replaced it. So I went from sort of a visual art nerd to an audio nerd, and it really did. It replaced that creative space. It replaced the feeling of creating content and putting it out there for folks. And as far as why, I think that when I started Shine, again, like I'm a teacher trying to figure out how to run a business, right? And I read a book by Jay Baer. He's a great marketing author. Every single book he writes is very good. But one of his first books, it's not as well known, is called Utility. And the basic premise is very simple. It's just you have to zoom in on your ideal client, which is true of any marketing idea, right? You have to know who you're talking to. If I just said I sell insurance, it's like, okay, you're not talking to me.
Right.
But I work with commercial real estate investors who have 50 or more doors and have deals that I would invest in. I mean, that then zooms everything down so I know who I'm talking to. So that's the first thing, is really, no matter what you're doing in life, if you want to grow it, you really have to understand who you're talking to. And then do good stuff for that person. It doesn't matter if it has anything to do with your topic. In fact, especially if it's insurance, probably shouldn't have anything to do with your topic.
Right.
Yeah. Like, just do good stuff for that person. How can you provide value to that person? Answer that question and then go do it. And there's 1,000 ways that you can do that. But, connect your business name with that, of course, in some way, and connect your personality and who you are with it. And then just go and try and do it. And I read that book right at the beginning of Shine. And I've been continuing to try and do the best I can at that. And YouTube videos and podcasts have been really the vehicle that have worked best for me.
Right. And have you ever had instances where like you're taking clients and maybe directing them to a specific episode? Like, hey, this might be something that would help answer maybe some questions about something else in the real estate industry that you may have. Because I've done that, and it's actually been a nice way, like we were talking about before, adding value. It's not even me talking most of the time. I'm conducting the interview, but I have somebody on there that's talking about whatever. Let's just pick a topic, 1031 exchanges, and then they can learn all about them. You know what I mean? Yeah. So do you ever do that kind of stuff as well?
100%. And it works both ways, right? So you create content, have podcast conversations and stuff like that, and then drive someone to it when you're having that conversation. But also, most of my YouTube videos came from those conversations. So when someone asks me a question and I've got to write an email that takes me a half an hour to answer whatever the topic question is, it's like I just wrote a video. And if I record that video and put it out there, the next time someone asks, I can give them the abbreviated version and say, hey, if you want to learn more about it, click this link and go watch this video. And so it works both ways. Not only can you say, hey, go to that content because it'll really help, but you can listen to that question that you just answered and create content based off of it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's been an opportunity, especially when we're talking also about the networking side of it. My network, just having a podcast, has just exploded. I mean, granted, I've only been going now for a little bit over a year. We started in July of last year, but I mean, over 100 episodes in now, and the network just continues to grow. Even people that haven't been on the show, I now see at events, and they're just like, Mike Ham, Morning Spotlight. I'm like, yeah, baby. Like, that's how it works. That's right. But and I was just flipping through some of your past episodes here on the website, which is, why is it not showing up on here? What's the website for the podcast? Let's plug it right now.
REIClarity.com.
REIClarity.com. So I saw Billy Keels on here. I saw
great guy.
Where is he? Chris Ressa on here. Yep. I saw a couple other people that I recognize and people that I've had on the show and all that kind of stuff. So it just, for me, that's been an opportunity to kind of expand the network and connect with different people. And for me, I've seen positive results with my business side of it, because it's just the more that you're putting stuff out there, creating content, being out in front of people. It's like that 24 hour a day sales rep, basically.
100%. I really believe there's no better way to network than having a podcast. Or going guesting on other people's podcasts. I mean, there's lots of great ways to network. Conferences are obviously a wonderful way to network. There maybe isn't any better way than truly just sitting at a table or going and playing golf or whatever else. There's lots of great ways to network, but having a podcast just gives you access to folks that you wouldn't necessarily have any other way. If I called up Chris Reza and said, "Hey, can I sell you some insurance?" He would laugh at me. He'd be like, "Who are you? I have no idea." And if you said, "Hey, I love what you're doing. I'm interested in what you're up to. I'm wondering if you could come on my show and talk for 45 minutes and share with my listeners, some insights about commercial real estate." They're like, "Yeah, absolutely." And you get to have a conversation like we're having. Mike, you and I didn't know each other before this conversation.
Yeah.
We likely will become friends after this and establish a deeper relationship. And that's the power of engaging on podcasts as a guest and as a host. I think it also makes you a better listener.
Yes,
You just
definitely.
inherently have to learn to listen to people better. And that's another powerful. So I'm a huge advocate for podcasts. I know, more and more people have podcasts. It's starting to feel like everybody has a podcast. Who cares? Go have one. If you've got 50 listeners, if you've got 10 listeners, if you got to have that guest come on and talk with you for 45 minutes that you would have never gotten 45 minutes with otherwise, then you won.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I could not have said that better myself. And I could not agree with that more. That's just been like, people are, like you said, so much more receptive to just being like, "Hey, sure, I'll come on your podcast," rather than be like, "Hey, I'm a title sales rep. You want to have lunch with me?" And they're like, "No." I have lunch, every other day. But yeah, no, I think that's tremendous. So you also mentioned, as you were talking about these potential clients that you have and all that, and that you're selective. And one of the key takeaways from that was, would we invest in the types of deals that they're doing? Do you do your own real estate investing, or is it kind of like the Warren Buffett thing where, like, if I don't understand it, I'm not going to invest in a type of deal?
Yeah, I'm very early in my limited partner investing. I'm in one deal right now, apartment complex out of Louisville, Kentucky. So that's about as early as you can be.
Right.
But I do have a goal over the course of the next 6-7 years to grow $10K a month of passive income through real estate investing. So I'm definitely going down that road. I'm sure the same is true for you, Mike. I see great deals all the time.
Yeah.
And so the cash flow side is the insurance agency and really doing that, my business as an entrepreneur over there. And then I'm taking that cash flow and as quickly as I can, investing in more and more deals. Right now, as a passive investor, I could certainly see being a GP on a GP team at some point as a capital raiser, as the connections grow and the community grows and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that being now getting your feet wet and started in the real estate investing journey, does that give you a better insight into what your clients are dealing with, or what they have to do as far as like when they're putting deals together, when they're buying insurance, when they're going through all these steps? I mean, I know you're on the LP side, so maybe it's not as like hands-on, or it's probably not. It's definitely not hands-on, but you're still going through that process. So maybe seeing some of the things that they may be experiencing, and now you're able to kind of, approach them differently and educate them differently. Maybe,
I think
it's still too early to tell. That's also a possible answer.
No, I mean, I actually think being someone's insurance agent is more in the middle of how it works than being an LP investor, right?
Yeah.
So the way I really see the stress of a closing, the navigating of daily experience of, operating a large office building or an apartment complex, I think that I see that more deeply from the phone conversations I have and walking through properties as an insurance advisor.
Right.
So like you probably see the experience of the compressed stress of a huge closing.
Yes.
And that closing date changing and thinking you have everything together. And then one thing is wrong and that pushes the date, and the feeling of failure and what do we have to do to get this thing? And then finally closing. And the only relief you have is that now you're in charge of 100-unit apartment complex and 50 people's money that just invested in it. And you've got to get this right.
Right.
And, I think that, LP investing is such a hands-off deal, right? I mean, you basically drop your 50K and, watch from a distance. And an insurance agent is really much more on the team, much more in the middle, much more sort of dealing with the day-to-day as much as we can.
Right. So maybe it goes in reverse. So maybe when you do get on that GP side, maybe you have a better handle on maybe somebody that's venturing out into the GP world for the first time ever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it will be your first time ever, but you've already been ensconced in these conversations, in these talks, in these deals. So maybe it goes the other way. Maybe you're already setting yourself up for success. I'm sure you are, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is the pressure, right? Like in the end, if you know how to run a business and you know how to build a business plan and you know how to trust other people who are better at given things that you need to do, like those are the skills you need to succeed. When you're really doing it though, if I say I'm going to raise $1 million, I have to raise $1 million.
Right.
Now that's a different kind of stress. Yeah. If I say I can get you the best policy at the best price for a given property, there's some stress there. There's a ton of work there. There's a lot of background that has to happen and back and forth that has to happen. But I know I can succeed at that. Raising $1 million and asking people to hand over $50, $100, $200,000 of their money.
It's a little bit different ask.
That is a different ask.
Yes. Right. Trust me. Yeah. Just give me your money. Trust me. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of you.
You know, the Billy Kills and the John Castmans, and there's so many amazing syndicators and so many amazing capital raisers out there. But it's a beast that I always respect. And these folks, are good at what they do because, coming back to what we were talking about further, they're simply able to educate. I'm John Castman is one of my good friends. He has a great podcast. If your listeners haven't heard of it, check it out. But he's just like, I'm never selling anything. I would never ask someone to hand me $50,000. I will tell them what's available here and why I think it's a good idea. And, I'm more than happy to have them on the team if they want to be. But I think that no matter what level, and we call it sales because I mean, it is, in some ways that is what it is.
Yeah.
But good sales is not trying to sell anything. It's just telling people about the value you have. And if you don't have a value, people say you could sell a stick off the street or whatever. Well, I would never want to be that person, because what value does a stick have? Unless it's someone who's trying to build a fire to keep themselves warm, or something like that. Okay. Now I see the value, but there's got to be value there, and that's all you're doing.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's funny too, because I have no sales background, but when I was coaching, I was recruiting a lot. And one of the schools that I had worked at, the tuition there was $60,000 a year with no academic merit money. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you're either paying full price or you're on need-based aid. Right. So there's just two very different ends of the spectrum there. And I think that when you're talking to someone, I don't care how well off any family is in America, to say $60,000 a year, please, for tuition, room and board, they're gonna you could hear the wallets closing and then them running out of the room. But we would never obviously talk about that. Obviously, that would come up in conversations when you're talking to that. But you need to make them feel comfortable. They need to trust you. They need to do all those types of things that we're doing. And I didn't realize that I was developing sales skills, air quotes for the listeners, because it's just like people want to do business. And this is the old cliche. And we've said it a million times on this show, but it's the people want to do business with the people that they know, like, and trust. And the more you're able to do that and put yourself in a position to build that trust and all that kind of stuff. And if they like you, they're more adept at doing business with you. That's just how it works.
Yeah, 100%. And I think know, like, and trust. If folks haven't heard that concept, it really is true. And what's nice about it is it creates a very nice funnel for how you get to know people. Like, if they don't know you, they can't like you. If they don't like you, they're not going to trust you. And I think I come back to that all the time.
Yeah, right. I trust people that I don't like, and I won't do business with them.
Yeah.
But
that is interesting. I mean, I agree. Like the like is a little different than the trust, because there are people that I trust because I believe in their skills and knowledge.
Right.
I may not personally like them.
They might rub you the wrong way a little bit.
But I guess I do like if you're not doing business with them, then okay, that doesn't work. But so I'll do business with someone I don't like if I just said that I have to like them to be their insurance advisor. That's a little bit different, but to bring them on as a service provider or something, I'll do business with someone I don't like if I truly trust them.
Yeah. Good point. So I have a question about insurance, because as we've been talking, I've been doing my background mid-interview research, because as you could tell, I am a pro.
I love it.
But I was going through the website, and this is on the shineinsurance.com website. So there's the plug for the website midway through this episode. And one of these things, it's in bold. It says 80% of real estate investors have insurance that will fail them when it matters most. So as the listeners can tell, and as you could tell, we are sometimes a little bit all over the place with our conversations. So we're back to insurance. But tell me about that. That seems like a high number. So how do you like quantify that maybe? And then how do you why are they having insurance policies that fail them?
Why? It's crazy, right? So, 80% of real estate investors have insurance policies that will fail them. It's staggering. And so where did I get that number? So I do reviews as a part of our fit call process. And then coming on, one of the things I want to do is review what you have going now. In fact, it's a part of our process. I need to see what you have going right now so I can assess that. And I'll actually create a video for you. It's called a portfolio review, and say, here's what I see with your existing scenario. Here's what I can do to help you. If you want to stay where you're at, great. If not, if you'd like to come and be a part of a client of Shine, I'd love to have you, or whatever. So that's how I get that statistic. And the biggest reason that this happens is that people chase price. There's just no other reason. When you, especially if you go out, and this is the common way to purchase insurance, is we say, okay, I'm going to go to 4 insurance advisors or insurance agents and say, hey, I've got this 50-unit apartment complex and I need an insurance quote for it. And so these folks go out and get quotes for you, and they know that you're bidding the insurance. They know that there is going to be one decision-making factor at the end, and that is price. And there's a very easy way to make price be lower, and that is to strip out coverage. Strip out important coverages that end up really taking care of you in a claim scenario, right? And so people buy insurance based on price, which I get it. Like, you're looking at all your line items and everything cuts down on your net, like the money you make, everything you spend, every expense you have brings down the separation between your income and expenses, right? And so you want it to be cheaper. But when you make it cheap insurance is expensive. And when you have really cheap insurance, it fails you. And over and over and over again, especially when it comes particularly to multifamily and apartments, because there's a lot fewer good insurance companies that say yes to insuring apartment complexes. And so it's much easier to buy a junk policy. And so I'll see junk policies and I'll list off some of the things that they have. And I'm not going to go into explanations of all this stuff unless you want me to, but, ACV coverage and, super high deductibles and incredibly high deductibles for wind and hail, co-insurance penalties, underinsured buildings. Like that's 5 things right there. And your listeners are going, well, I don't know what any of that means. It means that in a claim scenario, you are going to get less than what you should. And you really don't come to understand what those things are until you've had a $500,000 fire, like one of the stories I like to, or not like to tell because it's rough, but the stories that I share about missteps that folks make around insurance, where their policy for a $500,000 loss paid out $300,000. So $200,000 difference. And it's all those things I just listed off started cutting away at the claim. And what did that person feel in that scenario? Well, they were pissed.
Right.
And then, other stories where a claim is denied, right? You're really pissed. If you ever want to really get mad at something, go read insurance company reviews. Doesn't matter which one, just, go pick one.
Right.
And it's because of these exclusions. And in a lot of ways, it's because, and I'm not blaming the buyer because there's problems on both sides of this, but it's mostly because the policy that was purchased was junk in the beginning. And so when you go to use that policy you paid money for, you're deeply disappointed. And so, I think that 80% number sometimes I think it's low. I think almost every insurance policy that I review, particularly on apartments, it is problematic in one way or another, and oftentimes is deeply problematic.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like, so for us in the title insurance world here in New Jersey, it's different from state to state, but here in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, we're all very similar. We have filed rates. And so they're all regulated. All the forms are regulated. Doesn't matter what company you go to, you're going to get charged the exact same price for the exact same product. And people, cut corners and do different things. And maybe use an agent that their, realtor knows, or their whoever has a relationship with. Maybe they get a referral fee for whatever it is. But then at the end of the day, there's are generally, I don't know, 80%. I don't know if that's quite the number for title, but it's still that there's issues that arise, and then maybe this title agency is so small that, something that happens like last year, they go out of business, and then you have questions or want to access that policy because you lost it. Good luck. You ain't finding it. It's gone. So I think that especially when we're talking about, multifamily and commercial real estate and different things like that, even if you're buying like $100,000 house, if it's like a starter home, it's a big investment for you. And it's crazy, not crazy. Like you said, I get it too, that people try to cut out some of those costs, but in the end, you're going to wind up paying more because, you didn't take the time to properly protect that investment. You know what I mean? And so go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, we know like when we're creating the lease for, if we have a big property, if you got 1 or 2 doors, this might be a little bit different, but if you've got a property with 100 doors and you're creating that lease, you've got a choice. You could probably purchase a lease online or from a course or from a guru for probably, way too much money, $5,000 and, or whatever, and use that lease, or you could establish a relationship with a lawyer. Inherently, whether we want to establish a relationship or a lawyer or not, we know if we have a lawyer who's actually looking at our situation and talking through what we want to do and what scenario we want to have, we're going to have a better lease, right? Even if it probably will cost us a little bit more. That's true in almost every service provider scenario that you have. If you want a great property manager, you're probably going to have to pay a little bit more for them. But especially with property managers, it's worth it, right? If you can find someone good, you pay for them. And, I'm not saying that insurance from us is more expensive, because really, in reality, it's not. But I think that you have to make sure that you're getting quality insurance that may be a little bit more expensive because you're paying for better coverage. And inherently, we understand that, but we see these commercials on Super Bowls where insurance is just money, 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 cheap, 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 and funny, 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 which, there's a lot of good, funny insurance commercials. So good for them. But, I think that it's just basic knowledge that sometimes you get what you pay for.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Well said. All right. So I want to learn more about goals. Okay. So that's one of the things that I always like to ask people that I have on the show, is kind of where they maybe are seeing, where they would like to see themselves go. So I know you mentioned about the, maybe $10,000 a month, I think you said, in passive income from the real estate investing side, but maybe from the insurance side, as you guys continue to grow Shine Insurance and do different things like that, do you have goals in mind that you're trying to accomplish over the next year, 2 years, whatever it is?
Yeah. So I've always followed a model from the very beginning, where and I'll just quickly say it, but essentially you imagine what life looks like way down the road. So at first, I think we did 5 years down the road, and 5 years is kind of the key term, but we talk about 20 years down the road now too. And you imagine that scenario, you imagine that for your health, you imagine that for your relationship with your spouse and your family, you imagine that for your business, for your employees, for how you're affecting your community. You just imagine way off into the distance the why behind what you do. Like, what are we doing here? What does the future look like? What does success look like? And then you create waypoints back. So what I do for the closest one is I do the 5-year vision, and then I do usually I do 3, 2, 1, 6 months. Sometimes the 2 is skipped, sometimes 5, 3, 1, 6 months.
Right.
And then create goals to there. So with Shine, it's really a matter of, can we continue to help high quality commercial real estate investors as a part of their investing team? Can we continue to elevate ourselves as someone who people look to and say, I didn't think about insurance this way. before, but after, going to Jeremy's workshop or hearing him on a podcast or just experiencing how Shine works or reading a review, now I suddenly understand that I want Shine on my team and continuing to have profitable relationships with people we like and want to invest in. So, we have growth models, we have dollar models, we have how much we pay our employees models, and all those kinds of things. So I can give you a more specific answer,
No.
but I think that's
great.
kind of what you're
Yeah.
looking for.
100%. Yeah, definitely. I think that's great. I'm always just interested to kind of see like how people approach those. Cause like some people are like, I have no goals. I just, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I'm just going to work my tail off and then good things should come to me. Other people they have a very specific vision in mind of what they want to have happen in their lives. I mean, every people like write it down, put it in their pocket, like all these other things. So I was just curious because I'm always curious about that type of things. That's why I wanted to ask. That was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a shiny object person. So if I didn't have those long-term goals and then a map to get there, and my wife and other business folks in our business, and certainly our team could tell you, even with a vision, people are having to drag me back constantly because I'm just like, oh, look, this is really cool. Let's go, let's start being real estate investors. Let's start I think that this YouTube channel could really be, I mean, what if we made it have 200,000 followers? Like, let's put, and it's really like, okay, what is it that is taking the time you want it to and leaving time for your family, for your community, for your personal endeavors. I built a deck on the back of my house this summer. That's sort of been what I've been doing. And yeah, sure, we could have hired someone to do that and it probably would have turned out a lot better. But that was the thing that I wanted to be for me. I wanted to contribute to our house. I wanted to, be in shape a little bit and work out. And I like working with wood. And so, that's what I did. It's like, how do you balance life? And I think men in particular struggle with this skill because and I'm the most guilty. It's just like, I want to be the horse and I want to move forward and I want to work 60 hours a week because I feel like whenever I get to that place where I've provided enough for the family so that there's this magical endpoint, then, like the skies will open up, rainbows and unicorns will pop out and the world would be perfect.
Right.
And I know that is something that I've had to shift my own mindset around to say, no, you, Jeremy, are just as important as everyone else in your family, as a piece of the puzzle. If you don't fill your own cup up, you can't pour out of it.
Right.
And that might have been a tangent, but
I love that.
I think I have to have the focus. That's what I was saying. I have to have the goals. I have to have the focus because just like my answer to that question, I'm very guilty of potentially going in many different directions.
Yeah. And we've talked and so we did mention earlier that, we have never talked before. This is literally the first conversation that Jeremy and I have ever had. And I think that we are similar in that way because I have gone in this episode kind of all over the place a little bit. Maybe that answer that you just had was a little bit all over the place. So we have some similarities, you and I. We're maybe cut from the same cloth. I'm not sure, but
and all over the places, that it can be fine. It's just, it's not fine for my sort of mental health. Like if I am distracted from the forward progress, then I'm not, I've got a team of folks at this point, and I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make this thing as valuable to our clients and to our team and to our community as possible.
Oh yeah. Right. And I do think, like you said, all over the place, not the worst thing in the world because it keeps you elastic and you could seize opportunities when they do present themselves. But if you put something in front of me and you're just like, put me on the tracks, I'm going. And I am like full bore on that thing and I will get it done. So yeah, maybe it's like the energy level, maybe.
I just one more last expansion on this topic, but I like sports analogies because I grew up playing sports and it just makes sense. But I think about sports a lot and I don't know what an all over the place sports team would look like. It seems like it would be very bad at what it did.
Definitely.
And, so I think when I look at my own idea of success is a baseball team, a college baseball team like the one you were coach on probably, that really is firing on all cylinders. And that is not all over the place. That is a group of people who have a plan, a playbook, and are trying to help elevate the team members to their highest caliber. And for me, I find that the most interesting path towards success.
Definitely. Definitely. All right. So let's move the show into our closing segment, which we call Under the Spotlight. So the Spotlighters have been listening to Mike Ham and Jeremy Goodrich talk for the last 50 minutes almost, which has been great so far. It's been a lot of fun. We've learned a lot about insurance and other things and podcasts and YouTube channels and connecting with clients and networking and us being sometimes all over the place. We've talked about a lot. So what would be one thing that you would want the spotlighters to walk away from this episode with? So you're under the spotlight.
I think the biggest thing is, I guess I'm going to cheat and do two. With insurance, I think it really is find the advisor that you connect with. All the details of the policy work themselves out if you believe that the person is bringing you the best quality product, and then stick with that person and don't get sucked into the bottom of the barrel, race to the bottom thing. And I think when it comes to being an entrepreneur, a business owner, someone who's just trying to find success in any activity, if we summed up what we were talking about, I think there's really two things. It's like, go out and find advice from someone who's done it before you. And then the hardest part to me, take that advice and implement it every single day. And I think that is the hard. We're all open to hearing how we can do things better. But I think taking that information and then actually implement it daily and consistently. And a lot of times that's with an accountability partner, like a coach or something like that. I think that's the best advice I have. That's what I've found to help me be really successful, is when I know someone else is going to call me to task on something, I'm much more likely to get it done.
Right. Yeah. And we've talked about that on this show before. And someone had said that it's that the Malcolm Gladwell, like the 10,000 hours type thing. So you need to, why not leverage someone else's 10,000 hours? And if you're not using that, if you're just like, it's going in one ear and going out the other, what's the point? Like, why are you wasting your time and that person's time seeking out their advice? Maybe you do it a little bit differently, but you still need to actually take it and use it and put it into practice in some way, because they've put the time and blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak, into that thing.
Yeah. It's easy to learn. It's a lot harder to implement.
Exactly.
I think that's true.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So if people need more Jeremy, let's hit them with the links. So where can they go? We plugged a couple of them during the episode. So where can they go to get more of you, more of Shine, more of the podcast? Obviously the YouTube channel's on YouTube, so that goes without saying. But where can they go?
Yeah, I think shineinsurance.com is the great place to go for the insurance side. And then REIClarity.com is the place to go for the podcast and the YouTube channel. You can find us.
Yes, definitely. It's Shine Insurance is the YouTube channel, correct?
Yes, that's
right. All right, awesome. So I will make sure I put those in the show notes like we always do for all of our guests. I'll also make sure that I put the morningspotlight.com and the morningspotlight@gmail.com, the website and email address for this show. If anybody listening does want to reach out to the show, would be more than happy to hear from you. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on with us today. This was tremendous.
Mike, it was my pleasure. Let's do it again.
Yeah, no, I would love that. That would be awesome. Had a lot of fun with you and the Spotlighters. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.